Hello, I'm Mari Ashby and my guest this week, Anna Soubry, is the Conservative MP for Broxtowe and Vernon Coker is the Labour MP for Gedling. Welcome to you both. Anna, today's papers, of course, are absolutely full of the EU telling Theresa May that her strategy of trade first in the Brexit talks just won't work. It's worrying at this stage that they feel like that.
Well, not really. I mean, I think the thing is, you've got to look at it. I mean, we've made it clear, and actually, I think the EU also accepts that, you know, it is all part of the package. And I listened to the interview with the Prime Minister this morning, where she was saying, obviously, we want a good trade deal, and that will all be part of sorting out any exit payment, as it were, as well. So I'm not actually too worried about it.
But what the EU are asking for is for us to pay the money that we owe Brussels first, and to make clear what arrangements we'll make for EU migrants. That's what they've said.
I don't think they said that we should pay it first. I think they've said that we should agree it first.
Agree it first, yes.
I think the thing on EU citizens is absolutely right, and I think there is no difficulty with the government there. In fact, all of us want that matter to be sorted out as an absolute priority. But I think the danger is we lose sight of the trade agreement, or rather the EU does. One of the good things about this election, and there are many good things about this forthcoming general election, is that it will extend the amount of time left to the Prime Minister to make sure that if we need to extend negotiations beyond the 2 years, then she's got the time to do that. She's also got time to put in the transitional arrangements so we get the very best agreement and deal for British business, which actually is also as important.
Fair enough. It does seem that there is some difference of opinion there on where she's coming from in her agreement and where she wants to take our agreement and the deal that we get. Vernon Coker, you resigned from Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet. Now you're telling us to vote for him as a leader. That's awkward, really, isn't it?
No, not really. I mean, people knew my position about Jeremy Corbyn, the party vote for somebody else, and now I'm campaigning with everybody, both in the general election and the county elections, to vote Labour, and people will start to see the choices that are there. We've just been talking, Anna's just been talking about Brexit, and we saw the Prime Minister this morning. It's very unclear what is going to happen in the discussions with the European Union. They're being clear to us that they're going to be tough with us about that. And I think in those circumstances, it's important that we have Labour MPs in a strong opposition, working, in fact, with people like Anna on that part of the Tory party anyway, but a strong opposition working to hold the government to account so that Theresa May, if she were to win the election, doesn't have a blank cheque.
Of course, you're going to be in opposition, aren't you?
Well, who knows? The opinion polls are saying that at the moment, but there's a long way to go. So we'll see where we have to go. But it's really important that whoever the opposition is, that you have a strong opposition, a government held to account by a strong opposition. That's really important, particularly in the run-up to these important negotiations around Brexit. We don't want a hard Brexit. It's about our jobs, it's about industry, it's about all of those things. And as for the rights of people already here, the Labour Party's already said if we were to win the election, we would immediately guarantee the rights of EU nationals already here.
It doesn't sound like you're expecting to win, though.
I'm expecting us to do well, and we're certainly trying to do well. All I'm saying at the moment is the polls don't reflect that, so we've an awful lot of work to do, and we will do that work.
Anna Soubry, a sign of the difficulties that you faced this week is you've had to step aside from the Open Britain campaign, which promoted a soft Brexit. Now, realistically,
no, that's not why. So sorry.
No, but in reality, now that you have to put up with whichever kind of Brexit Theresa May goes for.
Absolutely not. Look, first of all, Theresa May's made it very clear that she wants this election to strengthen her hand, and I agree with her on that. Secondly, she's also made it very clear she does not want a hard Brexit. She wants a deal, and I absolutely agree with her on that. The next thing about Open Britain, the reason I've stepped away from Open Britain is because quite without any consultation, they've chosen to back certain candidates, which place those candidates in direct opposition to friends and colleagues of mine, two in particular, who I was horrified that.
So I guess you had you had to do that. You had to step
absolutely,
aside.
And that's why I made it very clear to them. I mean, I think Open Britain, frankly, has lost the plot. I mean, it's always been a bit of a peculiar Blairite type organisation, but this is very dull for your viewers, if I may say. The most important thing is that we get out and we make the case, whichever point of view you might have,
doorstep.
And the other
Okay.
thing, which can I just say very quickly, is this. I don't know where Vernon's found it. Actually, most people that I speak to, and I've been campaigning for the county elections for absolutely
Yes.
ages, they're bored a bit with Brexit. They just want us to get on and get the best deal now.
They
Okay.
are worried about the outcomes, though.
I'm sure they are worried
but
about
they
the
want us
outcomes
to get
too.
on with it.
Well, from now on until June the 8th, there'll be no escaping the politicians out to grab your vote. But what are the big issues that might affect us here in the East Midlands? From low wages to problems in the NHS, there are a lot of challenges in our region for whoever wins this election. Our political editor, Tony Rowe, has been casting his eye over them.
On the campaign trail in Derbyshire at a roofing company in Clay Cross, IKO Polymeric has been in business across Europe for over 40 years. How that trade works after Brexit will be down to the Prime Minister's Brexit deal. So what does business want? Perhaps not a general election.
What businesses are looking for is they want certainty. So a clear direction of travel for Brexit. What will the details of then those Brexit negotiations be, particularly around trade deals? But it does come all down to certainty. Businesses like certainty, it results in investment and that results in job creation.
Theresa May was on a quick stop-off in the most marginal Labour seat in the East Midlands, North East Derbyshire. New businesses have brought a new kind of employment to former mining communities which used to be Labour strongholds. Linney in Mansfield started as a bookshop in the town centre in Victorian times. Now it's a digital marketing company with over 800 staff and is one of Mansfield's biggest employers.
We could see the pits closing. If you worked down a pit, you could see the coal was running out. And people just did what people do, is they make other arrangements. Town's full of great people and we're still here.
Mansfield has a high level of economically inactive, almost 14,000. That's people of working age not looking for a job. Almost half are defined as long-term sick here. Figures like that perhaps go some way to explaining the East Midlands' poor productivity.
The Prime Minister says the Conservatives are the party for ordinary working people. That's a phrase coined by Harold Macmillan 60 years ago. Labour, meanwhile, say they are the party to protect working people. It's a vote they all want to win.
What they say and what they dish out is two different things.
Every party says the same thing, but in a different way, that they're going to make change this, change that, change this, change that.
I voted out, but I'm not sure now because Theresa, is it May? I don't know if she's got much idea of what she's doing somehow. I don't know. I don't trust her.
Oh, I think she's the best
Of the
bunch.
This week, Leicester's new £48 million accident and emergency department opened, an investment in the NHS which it's hoped will cut waiting times.
Labour also revealed plans this week they say will increase morale in the National Health Service. They've promised to raise the wages of NHS staff and also reintroduce training bursaries for nursing staff which were scrapped by the Conservatives.
The Royal College of Nursing says a shortage of nurses and the effects of Brexit on recruitment are of grave concern.
Surely the people that are here from other EU nations that trusts have worked really hard to bring over to fill the shortages that are there, surely it's time that those people needed certainty about their future employment rights. Employers are between a rock and a hard place at the moment, knowing how on earth are they going to fill the vacancies that they have.
Economic growth has slowed significantly this year with prices up and people not spending as much, a big factor in that. The Lib Dems have seized on this, saying the Brexit squeeze is beginning to bite, and they say a hard Brexit will leave people worse off.
Well, Tony is with us now, as you can see. Tony, you met Theresa May this week and you've been speaking to voters on the street. How is this general election playing out here in the East Midlands?
It will be interesting to see whether Theresa May does what she says she enjoys doing, which is going out on the doorsteps and meeting people, because there was no sense of that this week in Derbyshire. She came to a factory which was pretty empty. There was a choreographed route through the factory, and we got like one question each, so not much of a chance to interrogate her about any issues here. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there, because she is taking a bit of flack on social media from the opposing parties about the fact she's not talking to ordinary people. Equally with Labour, we've not had Jeremy Corbyn here yet. I imagine if he comes, it'll come to somewhere like Derby. But we had John McDonnell in Mansfield yesterday, and he was speaking to a May Day rally, but I recognised the crowd.
Anna Soubry, there are obviously plenty of issues to tackle here in the East Midlands. Low productivity, as Tony mentioned in his film. How do you tackle that, or is this actually on the agenda for this election?
Low productivity has been a big problem which has been very difficult to solve. When I used to be the business minister, it was something that we looked at. And in fact, the new industrial strategy particularly tries to drill into it. It is hugely complicated. And there are many different factors to what causes it and what we can do.
And you saw those figures in Mansfield, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, Mansfield, like many areas in our county, sorry, I know it's East Midlands, but, for Nottinghamshire MPs as we are, we know that we have difficulties with almost communities that have had almost generation upon generation of not working, feeling lack of aspiration and so on and so forth. I have to say, normally in labour areas. But that's why apprenticeship training is so important. And also looking at the investment. And I always argued for a change in the rating system so that when a business invested in new plant and machinery, it didn't actually find itself getting penalised. So that's one of the things that the industrial strategy has particularly been looking at, and rightly and properly so.
Vernon Coker, is the government doing enough on this?
Well, I think the government isn't doing enough, but there is a real challenge out there for governments, and has been, to be frank, for decades about this. But it's interesting about Nottinghamshire. I mean, one of the pledges that the Labour Party has made in Nottinghamshire is to actually say that that they will do more to actually generate that sort of skill base that we need through apprenticeships, through vocational training, through working with all of the agencies and indeed with government, whoever that is, to actually do something about it, because the skills gap is something which actually does impact on productivity and has been a major problem for a number of years. So it was good to see Labour in Nottinghamshire promising that as one of their specific election pledges.
And well, that's one of the things that Tony talked about in his film, wasn't it? Places like Mansfield are changing. You just had to look at one of the businesses there, that big employer, a digital marketing company. Maybe that change from the coal mining history, its past, if you like, to those kind of factories and firms now is part of the reason you're struggling in traditional Labour strongholds like that.
Well, I think it's speaking to that and saying, look, we want to raise aspiration, we want to give people the opportunity and chance to work in these new jobs. And it's talking about those new jobs, bringing that new investment in. And one of the things that I would say is that investment by the government and using investment more effectively into areas like that, working with local authorities is one of the ways that you can tackle it. But it is about raising aspiration for those people in those communities and in those areas, and that's what we're pledging to do.
Okay, Tony, what's your sense of how the other parties are approaching this election?
Well, Lib Dems clearly feel that they can possibly make some inroads into Leicestershire seats. As for UKIP, it's going to be fascinating for me what happens to that UKIP vote. Will they stay with UKIP? Will they see UKIP as not really standing for anything? Now they've got Brexit. So what happens to that UKIP vote? I think it's going to be crucial. It's going to be crucial in deciding some of those marginals.
Okay, so who is the party then for working people? Because both the parties are really positioning themselves right now as that. That's a traditionally a claim that Labour would make, Anna, but is this something that the Tories are prepared to take on?
Well, I've always been the sort of Conservative that wanted to represent everybody. I'm not much interested in what their background is. All I care about is where people are going. I mean, the reality of it is, and remember, I've been out knocking on doors for months now as part of the County Council campaign here in Nottinghamshire, and obviously in my own seat at Broxtowe. And the thing that is really, really striking is that Labour has a real problem with its working class, whatever that means. But I think most people get what that means with their core vote. And they just find themselves unable, I think understandably and rightly so, to back Jeremy Corbyn. It's as simple as that.
Well, look, it's a challenge for all parties with specific parts of the electorate. And clearly there's a challenge for Labour to ensure that people understand its policies and believe in its policies. And that's why, alongside other parties, Anna's been out canvassing, we're out canvassing in my own constituency, but we're out canvassing across the whole of Nottinghamshire and indeed across the whole of the East Midlands. People will be canvassing, actually saying to people, listen to what we're saying, not just listen to what people are saying that Labour isn't connected with its working class base, listen to what the Labour is actually saying and offering to those people, and judge us on what we're saying, not what you're being told you should think.
So Tony, briefly, what can we look forward to this week?
Well, obviously we've got the County Council elections on Thursday. That's one massive opinion poll which sort of give us some idea about how the campaign's going in the general election. And don't forget as well, in 2016 we were heard it was going to be really bad for Labour, but it didn't turn out as bad as people were saying.
Of course. Now, There is another election going on at the moment. Voters will go to the polls this Thursday to decide who runs our county councils. All of the seats in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire and Lincolnshire are up for grabs. The closest fight is expected to be in Nottinghamshire. Labour are in charge here, but there's no overall control. They have 32 seats, too short of the number needed for a majority. In Derbyshire, Labour have an overall majority of 10 seats. In Leicestershire, the Conservatives have a majority of 3, and in Lincolnshire there's no overall control, but the Conservatives are the largest party with 36 seats. And with the county council elections coming so close to a general election, the results will be watched very carefully indeed. Our political reporter Peter Saull has been taking a look at the battle for Nottinghamshire.
From the Civil War to the miners' strikes, Nottinghamshire has often been a battleground, and these county council elections are no different. Labour is besieged on all sides, and the Tories are leading the charge.
Peter, this is what Nottinghamshire could be like.
The local Conservative leader thinks tearing down part of County Hall represents a chance for renewal.
Well, I think you can trust the Conservatives to manage things in a proper business-like fashion. We need to raise the profile of this council. We need to raise the profile of the county across England and start punching our weight a bit more. We've done this once and I know we can do it again.
Also on the attack, the Liberal Democrats, hoping for an anti-Brexit surge from the south of the Trent.
We're the one party who support Remain, but it's not only about that. It's also about education and making sure that we have an education system that suits everybody, not just an elite 10 or 15%. And it's about making sure that we have good social care, which at the moment is being absolutely starved of funding.
People are ready to vote differently.
The Lib Dems have new allies in the Greens. They've agreed not to stand against each other in one area.
The Brexit Lib Dems and the Brexit Green Party, we share quite a lot of policies. So we thought it makes sense to do a pact so voters don't have to consider voting either Green or the Lib Dems if they agree on those policies.
To the west, along the Nottinghamshire coalfield, unruly bands of independents are planning more raids.
One day I might agree with the Conservative point of view, another day with the Labour point of view, and I can vote whichever way I want, whichever I think is the best for my residents.
And don't forget UKIP, looking to make inroads in Leave voting areas.
Locally, we've been very strong in the past. We're representing people whose voice aren't heard in the other parties. People are fed up of paying more and receiving less in the services, and it's about time we gave them a decent opposition.
When under attack, the key is to hold firm and staunchly defend your record in office.
I'm confident that we can do well in these elections. We don't take anything for granted, but the response on the doorstep is very positive. I'm confident that Nottinghamshire will return a Labour County Council. People are very concerned about the future of their local services, and they know that we've had 4 years, we've delivered, and that their services are safe in our hands.
So across the county, the battle lines are drawn. Will Labour be overrun, or will the Tories' dreams be left in ruins?
And I can assure you, of course, that Newark Castle was not harmed in any way during the making of that film. As Peter mentioned, there are independents standing in several parts of Nottinghamshire, including the Ashfield Independents Group and the Hucknall First Community Forum. Vernon, it is easy to forget, really, that these county council elections are happening. Vital for Labour. What does it mean if they don't do as well as they want to, and the predictions say they're not going to?
Well, I agree with Alan Rhodes. We're confident that we're going to do well. And you say, what does it mean? I'll give you one example. Just a couple of months ago, at the last one of the last county council meetings, the Conservatives proposed an amendment to the budget which would have cut money going to adult social care and would have cut nearly £1 million to adult social care and £1.5 million to children and young people's services, as well as other cuts. That's what it will mean. Not only the government cutting services here in Nottinghamshire, but the Nottinghamshire Tories joining in and actually adding to those cuts. That's the difference we'd make, and that's the choice people have got. And that's what people will vote for this Thursday, for Labour people standing up for services locally.
No, we didn't vote for your budget. We proposed our own budget.
Which was a cut.
hang on, we proposed our own budget, which you voted against, which is an extra 3% quite properly on the social care precept, so that there was more money going in. And actually a £1 million pothole fund. So I think a bit inaccurate. I think the thing...
I'll publish the figures on my website.
No, we both agree that adult social care needs more money. On that we are united, and that's what the Conservative-run council will deliver.
Would Jeremy Corbyn be in trouble, though, if these local elections don't go well for you as a party?
This is about the services that local people receive. So let's see on Thursday.
Would he be in trouble?
What, Jeremy Corbyn?
Yes.
It's the general election that Jeremy Corbyn's standing in, and what we're talking about
but
is
the local elections are an indication of how he might do,
I think we're going to do well.
General.
I mean, we can speculate, but I think we'll do well in the general.
If he didn't do well, should he step aside?
Well, he's not going to step aside. He's standing in a general election. We'll do well in the local elections on Thursday. I think we'll surprise people, and they deserve to do well as well, the Labour candidates.
Are you expecting a low turnout, Anna, in these local elections?
No, actually. I mean, there is a difficulty because, of course, we've got the general election, obviously, on June the 8th. But my sense of it as I go around is that people actually they get it because they're not daft, and they are actually looking forward to voting on May the 4th, next Thursday. And in fact,
well done.
I know, it's a bit confusing, isn't it? No, but no, they do get it. And I mean, obviously, I'm bound to say it, but actually, I do genuinely believe it. I think we've got a cracking team of candidates. And on the doorstep, which, as I say, I've been on now for many months, we are going down very well. But I mean, everybody's got to get out there, and obviously, I hope they all vote Conservative next Thursday.
Other candidates are available,
candidates are available.